Have you ever wondered which movies were so shocking that they were banned in the 1980s? Films so twisted, violent, or disturbing that audiences weren't allowed to see them? Now, decades later, these forbidden classics are back, ready to shock and thrill a whole new generation. Get ready to explore 20 banned 80s movies that you can stream right now. 20. Faces of Death. Faces of Death was one of the most controversial films associated with the early 80s horror boom. Originally banned in dozens of countries for its alleged graphic depictions of real and staged death scenes, it became infamous as a shock cinema milestone. Over time, edited versions and restored editions have become available on DVD, Blu-ray, and certain streaming platforms with age gates, letting modern viewers see a sanitized version alongside documentary commentary. Fans of extreme horror see it as a cult artifact reflecting an era when censorship and curiosity collided. Streaming editions often include content warnings and historical context, reminding audiences that what was once banned is now studied as part of cinematic history and cultural fear about real versus imagined violence. 19. The Last House on the Left. The Last House on the Left had a huge impact on horror in the late 70s and carried controversy into the 80s due to its raw portrayal of violence and revenge. Many countries banned it or required heavy edits before any screening. Today, multiple restorations exist, including Blu-ray collector editions and streaming availability on horror-centric services, often in uncut form. Directors and film historians cite it as a turning point in exploitation horror, influencing generations of filmmakers. Streaming versions may include director commentary, making the experience educational as well as intense. By revisiting it on modern platforms, viewers can understand how censorship shaped the film's reputation, how filmmakers pushed boundaries, and why it remains significant in the genre's evolution. 18. Cannibal Ferox. Cannibal Ferox was banned in several countries in the 80s over extreme content, including depictions of violence and animal cruelty. Often grouped with other video nasties, this film's notoriety made it a cult favorite among collectors and horror fans. Today, restored editions of Cannibal Ferox are available through specialty Blu-ray releases and on genre-specific streaming services that feature classic horror. These modern versions frequently have disclaimers and additional documentary material that place the film in historical context, helping audiences understand why it was controversial and how it fits into the era's exploitation cinema. While its content remains graphic compared to mainstream horror, streaming platforms now offer it responsibly, usually behind age restrictions and with notes for viewers seeking historical horror experiences. 17. The Beyond. The Beyond is an Italian horror classic that was confiscated in parts of Europe during the 80s due to its surreal gore and disturbing imagery. It became a defining example of why horror cinema often clashes with censorship boards. In recent years, The Beyond has been restored and released on Blu-ray with high-quality visuals, and it appears on several streaming services that specialize in classic horror collections. These modern editions often come with bonus content like interviews with filmmakers and critics who explain the artistic intent and historical controversy. Streaming availability proves how a once banned movie can be re-evaluated and appreciated for its atmospheric dread and influence, standing as a landmark of international genre filmmaking rather than just a banned curiosity. 16. Don't Go in the Woods. Don't Go in the Woods became controversial in the early 80s for its intense scenes of stalking and slasher violence, leading to bans in parts of Europe and heavy cuts in other markets. For years, it was hard to find complete prints, but modern restoration projects have brought it back to life. Today, it appears on various horror streaming platforms and on Blu-ray, often with improved visuals that pay homage to 80s slasher aesthetics. The film represents an era when independent horror pushed the boundaries of home video horror, becoming notorious and collectible. Streaming services now give it a new audience while including age gates and content warnings, proving that what was once too extreme for theaters can find a place in curated horror collections. 15. Devil Hunter. Devil Hunter was one of the video nasties that authorities targeted in the 80s for perceived excessive violence. For a long time, it circulated mainly through bootlegs and underground VHS copies, enhancing its cult reputation. In recent years, official restorations have appeared on physical media and select streaming platforms dedicated to classic and controversial horror films. These releases often include historical notes about censorship battles and interviews that explain where the controversy began. By watching it on streaming now, viewers can see both the film and its legacy as part of the broader conversation about free expression in genre cinema. The availability of Devil Hunter today highlights how once prohibited films find new life when placed in historical context with responsible viewer guidance. 14. The Driller Killer. The Driller Killer was banned in the UK as a video nasty in the 80s because of its gritty depiction of urban violence and psychological breakdown. For decades, it was difficult to see the full cut, but modern horror distributors have restored it for Blu-ray and streaming. On streaming services that focus on cult and classic horror, viewers can access this film along with contextual extras that explain its notorious reception. The movie's availability today shows how film history changes over time. What was once suppressed for shock value is now studied for its style, themes, and influence on later horror directors. Streaming editions help viewers appreciate the era's underground film culture and why movies like The Driller Killer remain talked about decades after their creation. 13. Surf Nazis Must Die. Surf Nazi. Nazis Must Die drew controversy in the 80s for its over-the-top violence and bizarre premise involving rival gangs and apocalyptic themes. Many mainstream critics dismissed it, but its notoriety helped it achieve cult status among genre fans. Today, it is available on ad-supported streaming services and cult film libraries online, often as part of 80s exploitation collections. These modern platforms include viewer advisories focusing on the camp and cult appeal rather than pure shock. For fans of oddball cinema history, its streaming availability is a way to explore a unique piece of 80s exploitation without the underground risk that once surrounded it. Streaming brings this once-derided movie into a space where its absurdity is part of its charm and cultural relevance. 12. The Boogeyman. The Boogeyman was a chilling horror film from the 1980s that terrified audiences with its dark atmosphere and supernatural themes. The story follows a young man haunted by the death of his parents and the terrifying presence of a supernatural entity in his home. Its suspenseful scenes, eerie visuals, and sudden scares made it one of the most controversial horror films of the time. Many countries banned or heavily censored it, fearing its psychological intensity and graphic moments would traumatize viewers. Today, The Boogeyman is available on streaming platforms and home media, allowing fans to experience its suspenseful, haunted tale while understanding its reputation as a classic, once-forbidden 80s horror film. 11. Human Experiments. Human Experiments was among the titles labeled as a video nasty in the 80s, banned for its graphic sequences and disturbing medical torture scenes. While legitimate distribution was once nearly impossible, it has since been restored and can be found on horror-focused streaming platforms and DVD releases. These modern versions include content advisories and often short documentaries about video nasties, giving valuable context. Streaming audiences today can explore how the film contributed to horror history and public fear of graphic cinema. The availability online celebrates the preservation of genre cinema while ensuring responsible viewing, showing that controversial films can be accessed with proper framing and warnings long after initial bans faded. 10. Cannibal Holocaust. Cannibal Holocaust shocked audiences worldwide when it was released in the 80s due to extreme violence, real animal killings, and graphic depictions of human brutality. Several countries banned it outright, considering it too disturbing for public viewing. Over the years, it gained cult status as one of the most controversial exploitation films ever made. Today, restored editions and curated streaming options allow modern audiences to watch it responsibly, often with disclaimers and historical context explaining its infamous reputation. The film's legacy lies in its ability to provoke discussion about cinematic limits, censorship, and morality. Modern viewers can analyze the film not only for its shock value, but also for its influence on horror cinema and the debate it sparked about what should be shown on screen. 9. The Evil Dead. The Evil Dead, directed by Sam Raimi, faced censorship and rating battles in the 80s for its intense gore and supernatural themes. It was considered too frightening and graphic for younger audiences, leading to temporary bans in some countries. Over time, the film became a cult classic, appreciated for its innovative camera work, creative practical effects, and dark humor. Streaming platforms and Blu-ray releases now provide access to both restored and uncut versions, complete with commentaries explaining its controversial history. Its enduring popularity demonstrates how a once-banned film can transition into mainstream recognition, inspiring countless filmmakers while maintaining its position as a landmark in horror history and extreme cinema from the 80s. 8. Zombie 2. Zombie 2, also known as Zombie Flesh Eaters, was heavily censored in the 80s due to graphic violence and intense gore. Many countries banned it, labeling it as a vicious nasty, yet it became a cult phenomenon for horror enthusiasts. The Italian zombie horror film was praised for its suspense, atmospheric tension, and groundbreaking zombie effects. Today, restored versions are available on Blu-ray and streaming services specializing in classic horror, allowing new viewers to experience the film with historical and artistic context. Streaming platforms often include disclaimers about its content and note its place in horror history. The film demonstrates the fine line between shocking entertainment and cultural taboo, showing how banned movies can later gain admiration as pioneering works. 7. Possession. Possession caused major controversy in the 80s for its disturbing horror, graphic violence, and intense psychological themes. Banned in multiple countries, it became known as one of the most controversial European horror films of its time. The movie explores human relationships, mental breakdowns, and supernatural horror, mixing emotional drama with shocking imagery. Today, restored editions and streaming releases allow audiences to appreciate its artistry and historical significance. Modern viewers can explore the film's intense themes while understanding why censors initially feared its impact. Possession demonstrates the role of horror in examining human emotion and societal fears, showing how films once banned can later become important cultural artifacts, studied and enjoyed responsibly. 6. House by the Cemetery. House by the Cemetery, directed by Lucio Fulci, faced censorship in the 80s for its graphic violence and disturbing atmosphere. Some countries banned the film, considering it too shocking for public release. Over time, it gained recognition as a cult Italian horror classic, praised for its suspense, practical effects, and eerie storytelling. Modern Blu-ray releases and streaming options allow viewers to watch the restored version with full artistic intent preserved. Age restrictions and content warnings provide safe access while retaining the film's chilling atmosphere. Its availability today shows how previously banned horror films can transition into celebrated cultural works, offering insight into cinematic creativity and the evolving standards of what is acceptable in visual storytelling. The Funhouse. The Funhouse caused controversy in the 80s due to graphic horror sequences, intense suspense, and themes considered inappropriate for children and some general audiences. It was censored in certain regions and faced scrutiny for its depiction of violence and grotesque imagery. Over the years, it became a cult favorite among horror fans for its inventive direction, atmospheric lighting, and memorable carnival setting. Streaming services and restored home media releases now allow audiences to experience it uncut often accompanied by historical context and director commentary. The Funhouse illustrates how films once banned or heavily edited can later be appreciated for their craft, suspense, and contribution to the horror genre, bridging past controversy with modern admiration. 4. Evilspeak. Evilspeak faced bans in the 80s due to occult themes, graphic violence, and disturbing supernatural elements. Several countries removed it from circulation, citing moral concerns and its potential impact on younger viewers. The movie mixes military school horror with demonic elements, creating a tense and frightening atmosphere. Today, restored editions are available on Blu-ray and streaming platforms, often including contextual notes on its censorship history. Evilspeak's streaming availability allows modern audiences to understand the cultural climate that led to its ban while appreciating its stylistic choices, narrative tension, and influence on later horror films. Its presence online underscores the ongoing fascination with controversial cinema and how cultural boundaries shift over time. 3. Surf Nazis Must Die. Surf Nazis Must Die became infamous in the 80s for its outrageous premise and extreme violence. Set in a dystopian California overrun by gang warfare, the movie depicted a battle between vigilante survivors and a brutal surf gang, mixing over-the-top action with dark satire. Many countries banned it due to its graphic fight scenes, exaggerated brutality, and controversial portrayal of social chaos. Despite this, it developed a cult following for its campy style and shocking content. Today, streaming services and digital rentals make it accessible to modern audiences, often with disclaimers about violence and adult themes. The film exemplifies how exploitation cinema could be controversial yet influential, maintaining notoriety and entertainment value decades later. 2. Don't Go in the Woods. Don't Go in the Woods drew controversy in the 80s for its slasher-style violence, tense stalking sequences, and scenes considered too intense for general audiences. Several regions banned the movie or heavily edited it before screening. Its reputation as a forbidden title made it a sought-after film among collectors and horror enthusiasts. Modern streaming platforms and restored home media editions allow viewers to experience the full, uncut version responsibly, often with age warnings. The film's impact lies in its tension, practical effects, and representation of early slasher conventions, showing how previously banned movies can find a new life. Today, it stands as a notable example of 80s horror pushing the limits of censorship and audience expectations. 1. Don't Look in the Basement. Don't Look in the Basement was controversial in the 80s due to its unsettling depiction of an asylum and the psychological horror faced by its characters. The graphic portrayal of violence, combined with disturbing scenarios, led to bans and censorship in several countries. For years, complete prints were difficult to find, adding to its cult reputation. Today, restored versions are available on streaming platforms and Blu-ray releases, often including contextual notes about its history and controversy. Modern viewers can experience the suspense, tension, and unsettling atmosphere while understanding why censors reacted so strongly. The film highlights how horror can challenge societal norms and demonstrates that previously banned titles can become respected, historically significant cult classics. The 1980s were full of shocking cartoons and movies that pushed boundaries and got banned. Heroes turned terrifying, villains went extreme, and some stories were too intense for their time. Which of these forbidden classics would you have dared to watch? Comment your thoughts, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another dive into the wildest, most unforgettable moments of pop culture.